Hi, this is Rhett with testingtheory.com, and today I want to talk to you about combining multiple strategies. When you combine multiple strategies at once, you get better testing outcomes, and you learn more about your site and your visitors. Not too long ago, I was working with a client, and this client had a third-party agency come in and audit all the work that was being done by this client. Of course, I was helping them do the A/B testing on the site, and so they wanted to audit the A/B testing as well. So not too long after the audit, we got an email from this third-party agency through the client, and the third-party agency basically said the following. They said, hey, we understand that you've been doing some A/B testing on the homepage and navigation and testing new labels and designs, and we want to know if you have held everything constant when you made these changes, or did multiple things change inside the A/B test? So when I got the email, I kind of laughed. This is kind of like a rookie question. People who don't know about A/B testing at least know they should hold things constant. And so they were trying to ask if we were holding things constant so we could isolate variables and learn. Now maybe it's a little bit cheeky of me, but I decided I didn't want to give them a straightforward response of like, yes, we isolate all the variables. Instead, I was a little more verbose, and I outlined all the different strategies we'd have been employing. I guess maybe not all of them, but I outlined several different strategies we've been employing to get more learnings with our A/B testing. Their question was telling me that they were trying to verify that my work was good and accurate and that I was doing a good job strategically. But the nature of the question helped me understand that they didn't really know what they're talking about. So rather than just saying, yep, we're doing it, and them being able to check a box, I wanted to come back with something a little more intense so they could see that we actually knew what we were doing. We were experts in the work that we were doing. So in my response to them, I said, yes, we're using multiple strategies to learn about the homepage, and these are the strategies that we're using. These are some of them. I proceeded to outline 5 different ways of testing, and I want to outline those 5 different things for you. Some of my other videos have touched on these things and go more in depth into each of these, but each of them has a time and a place, and in combination, they also help you get more value with your tests. The first strategy that I called out for this third-party agency was the baseline testing strategy. The baseline testing strategy basically says rather than choosing one thing and isolating that variable and trying to optimize that one thing, and progressively you get better and better, it says, what if that thing we're trying to optimize doesn't matter at all? So the baseline says just scratch everything, try something totally new, and you have multiple variations that are drastically different. The baseline basically says, rather than incrementally iterating, it says we want to set a whole new baseline, and if one experience is a massive win, then we have a new baseline to optimize and iterate from. So the baseline strategy is very strategic. It allows us to get drastic wins faster, even though you don't always know exactly what was the cause of the win. It helps you potentially get more bang for your buck. One of the biggest benefits about using the baseline strategy is it ensures you're not optimizing something that doesn't matter. Like I said, if you choose a widget on your homepage that doesn't matter, and you're like, hey, we're going to isolate that variable, we're going to improve this widget, and after 5 tests you realize we can't improve it because it doesn't matter, no one's using it anyway, then you've just wasted your time. So sometimes isolating the variables isn't the best approach to begin with because you might be testing the wrong things. Another thing the baseline strategy does is it challenges the false assumption that every element is independent of every other element. When we're testing, we're optimizing the visitor experience. And the visitor experience is all these things at once. Multiple things on the page are part of that visitor experience. And so to assume that we can isolate one simple thing and to learn exactly how that one thing impacts the visitor is kind of false because everything is interacting with everything else to create the entire visitor experience. By changing everything all at once, you're working with what I call the interaction effect, where you have multiple elements changed at the same time, and those multiple changes and multiple elements can have a positive impact on the visitor if they're a good experience in combination. The next strategy that I called out for this third-party agency was what I call existence testing. Existence testing is very simple in its function, but very strategic and valuable in the output. To do an existence test, you simply hide an element, and then if the visitor experience improves with that element gone, you know that was a bad element. If the visitor experience is negative with that element gone, you know that element is valuable. One of the biggest benefits of doing existence testing is, as a strategy, is that it allows you to learn similar to the learning you get when you run a multivariate test. With an existence test, you learn the relative value of elements because you're hiding them and removing them, and so the output, you get a ranking of which elements are the most valuable and which elements are the least valuable. You can run an existence test with much fewer resources and traffic than it takes to do a multivariate test, so it's strategic in that right. But one of the most important reasons why existence testing is so valuable is once you know the relative value of these elements, because you've removed them or added them, then you can now prioritize your resources to optimize those elements that are most valuable or to spend more time with those elements that are least valuable so you can bring them up. The next strategy that I outlined to them is the multivariate testing strategy. Now again, multivariate is a methodology that most people are familiar with, but you're basically taking multiple elements and you're testing them together to see how those elements contribute to success amongst each other. The nice thing about the multivariate testing strategy is it allows you to test multiple creative changes to a single element or to multiple elements all at once. As a strategy, this can be super valuable to start learning quicker about how you can optimize important elements on your site. So I wanted this third-party agency to know that we were doing multivariate testing and that we were using that strategically as part of our testing strategy toolbox to know how we can get more value for our visitors by using the multivariate testing strategy. The first strategy that I called out was isolation strategy. Now you might say that isolating a variable is not a strategy, but it does become a strategy when you realize that every strategic approach doesn't necessarily isolate variables. So with the baseline strategy, we're not isolating variables. With the isolation strategy, we are isolating variables. The nice thing about isolating a variable is once you've already established a new baseline with a baseline test and you know what's working and you know there's combination effect happening, you can then isolate those variables individually to see how important they are in that overall visitor experience that you're getting. When you're using the isolation strategy, no other variables are changed because you want to see just how that one variable interacts and impacts the visitor on the site. The last strategy that I called out is what I call the iteration strategy. Now again, you might say similar to isolation, that iteration isn't a strategy, it's just something that you do. But when you put this in context that you can do baseline testing strategy or existence testing strategy, you can learn about your elements through existence testing or multivariate testing, your iteration strategy becomes important because it helps you know when should you iterate, when should you keep optimizing an element, or when should you leave that element or that page and move on to something more valuable. Iteration as a strategy is important because you have to know when you should keep optimizing something or when you should leave it alone. It also acknowledges the fact that you don't know everything. Just because you have a winner, there's so much more you don't know about most of your visitor experience. So iteration as a strategy implies that you're not taking everything at face value, but you're willing to admit that you don't know everything, there's more to learn, and that we think we can continually optimize the site. The other advantage of the iteration strategy is that it allows you to learn incrementally rather than trying to solve all your site problems all at once. Iteration implies that you're not going to solve everything at once, and by doing that, you allow yourself to take time and creativity to solve problems a little bit at a time. So there you have it. Those are the 5 testing strategies that I outlined for this client that we have been doing on the homepage to help them understand that the depth of testing is there's so much more to it. There's so many things that you should be doing strategically, and these aren't even all the testing strategies. These are just things that we've done on the homepage to optimize it. So as you're doing your testing, consider that there are multiple strategies and multiple approaches that you should take. The baseline testing strategy, existence testing strategy, you've got isolation and iteration strategies, and you also have multivariate testing strategies. So each of these has a time and a place, and when you can learn to use the right strategies in the right time, for the right elements and the right experiences, then you get more value for your clients, more value for your visitors, and you get more conversions with every test. Thanks for joining me today. If you liked the video, please give me that thumbs up so I know that you liked it. You can also visit me at testingtheory.com where you can learn about more testing strategies and also sign up for a free consulting session with me. Testingtheory.com where you get more conversions and better testing.